The message came at 4:12 p.m., just as I was sprinkling parsley over the roasted potatoes. "Mom, don't worry about dinner tonight. Something came up, we'll reschedule." It was from my son, Daniel. I stood in my small kitchen for a long moment, phone still in my hand. The chicken was already golden and resting on the counter. The apple pie cooled near the window, its sweet cinnamon smell drifting through the house. I had spent most of the afternoon cooking, humming to myself the way I always did when Daniel came over. For a second, I wondered if I should reply. But the message was so casual, so final. "Something came up." I typed back, "That's okay, honey. We'll do it another time," and set the phone down. Still, the quiet in the kitchen suddenly felt heavier than before. Dinner with Daniel had become our little tradition over the years. Ever since his father passed away, Sunday dinners had been our way of staying close. Even after he got married to Clea 2 years ago, we tried to keep the habit alive. Or at least I tried. Clea was polite enough, but there was always a careful distance in the way she spoke to me. Like someone being courteous to a neighbor they didn't really want to know. I wrapped the chicken in foil and put the potatoes in a container. There was too much food for just me. For a while, I sat at the table staring at the dishes. Then, almost without thinking, I grabbed my purse. Daniel lived only 15 minutes away. Maybe something had come up, sure, but dropping off the food would still be nice. They both worked long hours, Clea especially. At least that's what Daniel always said. The drive over was quiet. The sky had turned that soft pink color that comes just before sunset. I told myself not to stay long, just drop the food, say hello, head back home. When I pulled into their street, the first thing I noticed was the cars. 3 of them. Daniel's sedan was there, of course, Clea's white SUV too. And another one I recognized, Clea's sister Melissa's convertible. I frowned slightly. Maybe the something that came up was family visiting. I grabbed the container of chicken and the pie and walked up the front steps. Before I even reached the door, I heard laughter. Not just one voice. Several. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I knocked. The laughter inside paused. Footsteps approached quickly and the door opened. Clea stood there. Her smile appeared instantly, but it was tight. "Oh," she said, "hi." "Hello, dear," I said gently. "I know Daniel said dinner was cancelled, but I made too much food. I thought I'd drop some off." For a split second, something flickered across her face. Behind her, I could see the dining room table. It was full. Plates, wine glasses, a roast sitting in the center. Melissa and Clea's parents were seated around the table. And Daniel. My son was in the middle of laughing at something Melissa had just said. He hadn't seen me yet. Clea shifted slightly, almost blocking the doorway. "That's thoughtful," she said, "but we're actually in the middle of something." At that moment, Daniel looked up. His smile disappeared. "Mom." The room fell quiet. I lifted the container slightly. I brought the chicken I made earlier. For a moment, no one moved. Then Daniel stood up quickly and walked over. "Mom, I thought you got my message." "I did," I said calmly. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, we just ended up having dinner with Clea's family tonight." I glanced past him again. 6 place settings. None extra. No empty chair. "Oh," I said softly. Melissa leaned toward Clea's mother and whispered something. I pretended not to notice. Daniel took the container from my hands. "You didn't have to come all the way here." "I know," I said. For a moment, we stood there awkwardly on the porch. Then Clea said, a little too brightly, "Well, thank you for bringing the food." It sounded less like gratitude and more like dismissal. I nodded slowly. "Of course." Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Do you want to come in for a minute?" The invitation hung in the air, thin and fragile. But I could see it in his eyes. He hadn't planned for me to be there. There wasn't a seat for me. I smiled gently and shook my head. "No, that's all right. I don't want to interrupt your dinner." Inside, someone restarted the conversation, their voices low but curious. Daniel looked back toward the table, then at me again. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. "Okay." I turned and walked back down the steps. The evening air felt cooler than before. By the time I reached my car, the laughter inside the house had returned. On the drive home, the streetlights blurred slightly through my windshield. Not because I was crying, but because I kept thinking about that table. 6 chairs, 6 plates, 6 people who had planned to eat together, and 1 person who hadn't been part of the plan. When I got home, the kitchen still smelled like roasted chicken and cinnamon pie. I sat at the table alone. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I reached for a plate and served myself a small portion. The food tasted fine, but it felt different somehow. Like something important had quietly changed. The next morning, my phone rang. Daniel's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a moment before answering. "Hi, Mom," he said. His voice sounded careful. "Hi, sweetheart." There was a pause. "I'm sorry about last night," he said finally. "I should have explained better." I waited, but he didn't continue. And somehow, that silence told me more than any explanation could. Sometimes it's not the cancelled dinner that hurts. It's realizing you weren't meant to be there in the first place.